Hello again and welcome back to our course on Excel 2013. In this section we're going to look at copy, cut and paste. If you're familiar with Windows applications, I'm sure you will have used copy, cut and paste quite a bit before. There are a few very specific things in relation to Excel that you need to know about though. Because with Excel, particularly when you come to paste something, there are various things that you might or might not want to paste as you are doing it. And in this section we're going to start to look at some of the complications of copy, cut and paste as they appear in Excel 2013. Now the first thing to note about cut, copy and paste in Excel 2013 is that you can cut, copy and paste various things. You can cut, copy and paste a worksheet in a workbook. In fact, if you go into File Explorer in Windows 8 for example, you could copy and paste a whole workbook. But within a workbook, within a worksheet, you can copy and paste columns, cells, whole sheets. You can copy and paste part of the contents of a cell. So, for instance, let's suppose I select these 5 cells here. Then on the Home tab, in the clipboard group, there are 3 enabled buttons. The top one is cut, the next one is copy, and the next one is Format Painter. I'll come back to Format Painter a little bit later on. Copy is the one we're going to use first. Click on Copy, and what we've now copied to the clipboard is those 5 cells. Not just the content of the 5 cells, but the fact that they are 5 cells. Now once you've copied a selection like this, you can see what some people call the marching ants around that selection, just to remind you what you've copied. And if I now select 5 cells elsewhere in the same worksheet and click the paste button, note that once I've done a copy, the paste button is enabled. I will paste those 5 cells into a new position. Now notice that in pasting them, Excel has made the 5th row taller to accommodate the taller content in the 5th cell. So that's a very basic copy and paste. Now look at the original 5 cells. I've still got the marching ants. That's still the selection. I could paste the same selection elsewhere. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to paste them into the cost column. Now when you're pasting, if you've got, as we have in this case, a number of cells selected, here we've got 5 cells, you don't really need to select 5 cells to paste into. You can just select a first cell. And if I now click on paste, watch what happens with just that one cell selected. Now what happens is it pastes in those 5 cells, but it won't make the column width wider in this case. So in order to accommodate the text, it's wrapping the text in every one of the cells. Now exactly what it will and won't do in terms of whether it will make a column wider, whether it will make a row taller and so on, largely depends both on the current situation in terms of what's on the worksheet you're working in and on the formatting that you're using. And I'm going to explain some of those during the rest of this section. Now let me go back to my original selection of 5 cells, and this time instead of doing copy I'm going to do cut. So I use the cut symbol there in the clipboard group on the Home tab. Do a cut, still see the marching ants. This time I'm going to select that cell there, and again paste is enabled. Click on paste, and those 5 cells are cut. Now there's no problem with the 5 cells going to their new location. The difference of course with the cut is that they have left their previous location and therefore they are no longer selected. Once you've done a cut and paste, the selection has gone. And one thing to note after that paste is that the paste symbol in the clipboard group on the Home tab is now greyed out, which means you cannot paste again until you copy or cut something else to the clipboard. Now you should be aware of the well-known keyboard shortcuts in Windows for cut, copy and paste. They're exactly the same in Excel. So cut is Control and X, copy is Control and C, paste is Control and V. So if I, for instance, wanted to take the last 5 cells that I've pasted, those 5, to cut them using the keyboard shortcut is Control X. And if I wanted to put them back where they were originally, select the first cell, Control V to paste, and those cells are pasted back into their original location. So when you have the marching ants, when you have a set of cells selected, to cancel the selection, just press the escape key. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a different selection, and I'm going to talk about the various types of paste that we can do. So I'm going to select these cost figures. Now there are 6 cells, they're now selected, so now I will copy them, and I'm going to paste them just into this position here. Now watch carefully what happens as I paste. After the paste, in the bottom right hand corner, there's a little thing called a smart tag, and that smart tag corresponds to paste options. And if you click on the drop down, you'll see a number of paste options. Now some of them have run off the bottom of the screen. Don't worry too much about that because we'll come back to those in a moment. And within the paste options there are several versions of paste. Now by default it does a straightforward paste. The second option is it pastes formulas. I'm going to look at formulas and pasting formulas later on in the course. This one says formulas and number formatting. This one keep source formatting. This one no borders. This one keep source column widths. This one transpose. So if I've copied a row, I want to paste as a column. So for instance, if I selected that one, look what happens. I actually finish up with the numbers across the page. There are many options for this, and I'm certainly not going to go through all of them on this course, but as you can see there are plenty of them there for you to look at, and sometimes things like being able to copy a row and paste it as a column or vice versa can be very useful operations. Now in this section I'm really going to concentrate on a couple of those key copy and paste combinations, and I'm going to leave you to experiment with the others. So the list of options that we saw just then on that smart tag, let me just go back to doing the same thing again. I've copied that list of costs. I'm going to select a cell down here. If you go up to the paste button in the clipboard group and click on the drop down, you'll actually see that list of options up here. It's the same list that you get with the smart tags, and you can do things like, for example, if you choose paste values, you don't paste the formatting, you just paste the values. So if I clicked that, I would get these strange numbers. Now the thing that's happened here is that because it hasn't even pasted the format for those, so it hasn't even said that these are currency values, Excel 2013 has interpreted those numbers in a default kind of way. Now the way that it's done it may seem rather strange to you, but bear in mind that when it does date formats, it actually does date formats on the basis of the number of days since January the 1st, 1900. And it's coming up with values like this, 1/18/1900, which probably looks a really strange thing to you, because if you count 18 units, it was $18.90, 18 units from January 1st, 1900, you get January the 18th, 1900. Now obviously that's not at all what you'd intended, but when you do paste the values, it takes just the numbers and it interprets them in whatever way it wants to at that time. Now of course we could work out why it's interpreted those as dates, but it doesn't really matter. The key point is that we haven't pasted any of the formatting at all, not the font, not the font size, not the background color, the fill color, not even the fact that they're currency values. We've just pasted the numbers. Now of course that sort of thing will happen to you from time to time when you're doing copy, cut, paste in Excel, and you should by now be able to fix that sort of problem quite easily. They've come through as dates. If I select those cells and go on to Format, Cells, I can see yes, it's definitely interpreted them as dates. If I just click on Number, check the number of decimal places, yeah, I'll stick with 2 decimal places, maybe 1,000 separators, click on OK, and of course the numbers come through just as straightforward numbers, not as currency, but as you can see the numbers are the correct numbers. So let's look at something now which is pretty much the sort of opposite of that. Let's suppose that I particularly like the formatting of a range of cells here. I've got 6 cells here with the dates in. I really like that layout and I want to apply it over here. Now of course the issue here is that the format I've got is a combination of the colouring, the font size and so on, and the actual number format. In this case the contents of the cells are dates, over here they're currency. Now one thing you can do is if you select a set of cells, let me suppose I select those, then I can use the format painter. If I click on the format painter, it copies everything to do with the formats. And if I then brush over the same 6 cells over here, release the mouse, I've applied that format. Now the format that I've applied is not only the color scheme, the font size and so on, but also the number format. So it's actually made these into dates. But of course I can select these, then if I right click here, format cells, choose currency, make sure I've got the US dollar sign, 2 decimal places, click on OK, and I've basically applied the formatting of that column to this column. Now the examples I'm choosing here obviously are relatively straightforward, small numbers of cells so that you can see them all on the screen at once. But this can be a really time-saving way of doing things, because what will often happen is that you'll arrive at the formatting of a column or a row or a group of cells with quite a lot of experimentation, maybe different color schemes, font sizes, effects like bold and italic, and it might be quite a challenge to work out all exactly the same steps again to apply to a different range of cells. So once you've got a format that you like, it can be really helpful to be able to copy and paste that format, even if part of it, as in this case changing dates back to currency, you have to do manually. Most of it is a pretty straightforward copy and paste operation. Now one thing I should point out about Format Painter is that you can use it in multiple places, and you don't need to match the number of cells that you're copying the format from and pasting to. So the way I could very easily have done the example that I just used, if you select one cell with the format you like and then double click Format Painter, you can then effectively paint it as many times as you like. So use it once, again, go somewhere else altogether if I like. So that's the way that you can use Format Painter repetitively. Again, that can be a great time saver, and then when you've finished, all you've got to do is to press the escape key to cancel the format painting operation. Now so far I've concentrated on copying, cutting, pasting, format painting, groups of cells, but sometimes you're going to need to copy and paste columns and rows, and I want to demonstrate one or two things about copying and pasting columns and rows very quickly. I'm going to demonstrate with one or two rows. If I, for example, wanted to put another cab fare row in here and I was feeling a bit lazy and I thought, oh, I'll just copy and paste this one. If I copy row 5 by selecting it, and then I can use the keyboard shortcut Control C to copy the row. If I were to then say select row 8 and paste it, so do Control V, of course that overrides row 8 and the original row 8 is gone, and okay, I've made a copy of row 5 but at the cost of deleting the original row 8, which is probably not what I'd intended. So let me undo that. I've still got row 5 copied. If on the other hand I right click with row 8 selected, one of the options on the contextual menu is insert copied cells. Now an insert is different from a paste, and generally speaking, when you're dealing with rows and columns in Excel 2013, if you're trying to make additional rows or columns by using existing ones, paste is generally destructive if you've got something selected, whereas if you do insert, it isn't. So if I do insert copied cells now, watch what happens. I finish up with a copy of row 5, but I've still got the original row 8. Of course, it's row 9 now. So that's something to be very careful of. The same thing applies with columns. If I copy that column, don't forget there's a copy on the contextual menu. Then if I select column F, right click, insert copied cells, it inserts a new column to the left of the selected column. So that's something to be very careful of when you're dealing with copying, cutting and pasting and inserting rows and columns in Excel 2013. Now we will be getting a lot of copy, cut and paste practice in the rest of this course, but I would like to mention one other thing, and that is that if you've used similar Windows programs before, particularly if you've used Office programs before, then you'll be familiar with the paste special dialog. If I've got a particular cell or range of cells such as this one copied and the paste is enabled, if you click on the button underneath, right at the bottom, paste special, and you have the paste special dialog, which you can think of as a sort of alternative to all the separate little buttons that are available now in Excel 2013. So you have some options up here where you can say I want to paste all, I want to paste formulas, values, formats, comments, etc. Quite a few different options there. You can also say I want to skip any blanks and I want to transpose. That's how you switch columns for rows, rows for columns. It's really an alternative approach that some people prefer. So that's the paste special dialog. That is it on copy, cut and paste for now. As I said, we'll be getting some more practice later in the course. I'll see you in the next section.